along with her lovely puppy Lily. It's Sarah Selip. Sarah, great to see you. Good to have you back on the show.
I know it's been a minute. Thanks, Scott.
Are you watching the Menendez brothers at all? Have you followed that case? This was well before your time, I know.
Oh, I am such a true crime buff. I haven't been following it though. I've honestly been up to my ears in election coverage for the past 2 years.
Right.
So
And
there's not much time between that and Love is Blind to really look into it. I know I need to care, and I'll probably follow Twitter, but yeah.
and I'm glad you're finding time for the priorities like Love is Blind.
It's the DC season. It's so interesting, and especially because DC culture is just much, much different than most of the other cities I've lived in. So to be able to see that on the full stage is wild.
So yeah, I have a feeling that dating in DC is probably even worse than I can imagine it to be. Well,
Yeah,
you got the
it's
ring on your
pretty
finger now, so you
bad,
don't care.
but I'm really lucky though. This is my first time being on the show since I got engaged. So yeah.
So as you're talking about the towns in which you have lived, Donald Trump was just recently
Mhm.
in your hometown, Latrobe, Pennsylvania, which is going to be a key county in swinging Pennsylvania back to Republicans this year.
I am so excited that we were able to host him again this time. Leslie Rossi, also known as the 59th District State Representative, and she owns the Trump House. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's all over Twitter. She has a full-on house with a like 20-foot statue of Trump, or it's like a wooden cutout. Yeah. But it's really interesting. It's red, white, and blue. So we obviously bleed red. We actually won in 2020. We won, or 2016. We won Pennsylvania for Trump, and really excited to have him back. Latrobians were out in force at the smallest airport in Pennsylvania, Arnold Palmer Airport, which I know you wanted me to bring
And
up Arnold Palmer.
I know
So yeah,
I hear it's got a really long runway.
Scott, no, no. But yeah, we were able to have Antonio Brown back. Steelers training camp also happens in Latrobe, so it was great to welcome him back as well as Le'Veon Bell. And it just looked like absolutely crowded. The energy was insane, and especially following the Butler rally, there was just so much momentum for Trump, and he's surging through the polls. So we're really excited about that.
Also of note, at the Latrobe rally, steelworkers came out to endorse Donald Trump, which at least the local union did, which is something that the National Union of Steelworkers has not done.
I'm not surprised, honestly. Latrobe, especially Western Pennsylvania in Guy Rushenthaler's district, we're all staunch Republicans, staunch patriots, and steelworkers love Trump. We're very, very blue collar, and the steel town has been going on for almost a century. We really, really thrive with it. So to see them show up for Trump as the steelworkers union, that is a really big show of force, and especially a slap in the face for Kamala.
The numbers have been swinging towards Donald Trump. I saw headlines today. I haven't looked at the polling data. I do like to break it down and interpret it on my own as someone who has looked at research numbers my entire career. But the numbers nationally have swung in Donald Trump's favor. And in some of the polls that I'm watching most closely, and there are thousands of polls out there that you could look at, I'm really paying a lot of attention this year to the betting markets, Kalshi and Polymarket, which overwhelmingly show support for Donald Trump.
Exactly. I'm a huge fan of Polymarket. I've never actually bet on it, but it's a really good way to see where people actually are on the issues, on the country, on the presidential candidates. And, you can always look at polls, but you need to look at the votes first. Polls really show trends, but there's always some sort of bias when it comes to who they're polling, where they're being polled, et cetera, et cetera. So Poly Market really is one of the only places I see where their vote or their bet will actually translate into a vote for that candidate on election day.
Sticking with Pennsylvania, the other big interesting number out of the state is the number of new Republican voter registrations that we've seen. Democrats have lost it. I forget the exact numbers, but it's a net loss of about 150,000, and Republicans have had a net gain of, let's say, 275,000, which, let's say, roughly a 100,000 voter swing towards Republicans this year.
And honestly, for it being such a contentious state, that's exactly what the Republican Party needs moving forward. Pennsylvanians are sick of being locked under socialist governors. And I mean, Fetterman's better than he was, but we really need to get people like McCormick elected. And I think really the Butler rally played a huge part in getting this to happen. I mean, over 100,000 people showed up across the Butler Fairgrounds where the rally was this last time. So to see Trump spending all of this time in Pennsylvania, being on the ground, working at McDonald's, it's a show of force that he actually cares about Pennsylvanians. And, you know, you can have staged Wawa visits and Kamala Harris doing whatever she does, all of these staged press, press events. But really, Trump cares about Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvanians want to be cared for and heard and seen, and he's doing that like one-on-one with them.
We're talking to Sarah Selip, founder of 917 Strategies, 917strategies.com, as well as Lily, who you should follow on Instagram, Lily on the Hilly, for cute puppy pics. Sarah, as we look at the early voter registration numbers, Pennsylvania, is that an early vote state? Will we see a larger early vote turnout? And I know after working with Congressman Jody Heiss, you've spent a lot of time talking about election integrity. How does that look in the state of Pennsylvania?
Honestly, time will tell. A lot of Americans are starting to vote early, vote by mail. It's just more convenient. But at the end of the day, we don't know when the results will be coming in. It could be day of. It just depends how the processing works. I think honestly, across the country, people are going to be trending towards early voting, mail-in voting. Just we're all busy. We're all back from the pandemic, catching up on everything. We just passed Q4. But on the other side, Pennsylvanians do show up at the polls. Republicans historically show up in person to vote. And honestly, from a media perspective, everybody wants to get the I voted sticker, the specific one to post on election day.
Right.
People like to do that. People like to exercise on social media the fact that they went out to vote. But numerically, I think Pennsylvanians will be showing up more. It's more rural. You're not looking for parking as you would in like major cities. So at the end of the day, we will see a lot more of a surge. It's 2024. People will just do that. But if Pennsylvanians are going to show up to the polls.
Sarah Selip here on the Scott Sands Show. You're a congressional insider as well. Are there any House or Senate races that you're watching closely this election season?
Oh my gosh. So McCormick, obviously, because hometown, home turf. Let's see. Moreno is at the top of my list, and all eyes are on West Virginia right now for me. Beyond that, I think that Ted Cruz, Colin Allred is going to be huge, and to see if Democrats can flip the state purple or not. It's going to be a fight. The poll's been very close, and we'll just have to see how that goes.
I think Ted Cruz in his reelection depends a lot on exactly what the voter turnout is for Donald Trump. I don't expect Kamala Harris to be able to flip Texas this year. I mean, there is certainly that danger in the next 10, 20 years that Texas may no longer be part of the Republican wall. However, Ted Cruz is having a tougher battle than many people expected. So that's certainly one to watch. What about Josh Hawley and his opponent's antics in Missouri?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So just to summarize for any of your listeners who haven't heard, Josh Hawley's major competitor in the Senate race got a reporter at his campaign stop with Adam Kinzinger a few days ago. Yes, you heard me right.
I just want to make sure people understand he shot a reporter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Kinzinger and Kuntz, they were shooting steel targets at 5 to 7 yards with rifles, which alone, that could have killed somebody given the force and the ricochet. But at the same time, there were so many weird things that were going on. There were two canisters of explosive tannerite powder on the table, downrange from where the guns were being fired. That could have potentially killed someone.
That's smart.
At one point, the cameraman is downrange from the guns, which is
No,
insane.
no, don't do
And
that.
then did you see the video where they were shooting with a high-powered scope, like a 3x9, to shoot a target 5 yards away? I mean, Tim Waltz doesn't know how to handle a gun, but at the same time, I don't know if there's a difference between like gun safety and Adam Kinzinger and Kuntz not being able to like take the safety off the gun. It's just a joke. Everybody's seeing through it. Twitter is ablaze over it, even a few days later. It's hilarious. Oh, and then
I
the
mean,
journalist had to go to the hospital.
it's hilarious because the journalist, the reporter, survived and finished his story there. They patched him up on the site. They had first aid, stop the bleed kits there, which, look, as someone who shoots, I recommend bringing a stop the bleed kit to the range with you as well. I think that's smart range safety. But I'm also not going to set up a metal target 10 yards away from my AR-15 when I'm taking when I'm taking shots.
Who set it up? Like, even just the advanced people deserve to be like fired. We're just given a slap on the wrist because who decides to do that? And God, what is the first rule of gun safety?
Well, you never point a loaded gun at anybody. You keep your safety on until you're downrange. I mean, the list goes on.
Exactly. Oh, and don't forget that even if you put a tourniquet on somebody, you shouldn't do it below to stop the bleeding. It should be above the wound.
Wait, I didn't notice that
So,
they put the tourniquet on in the wrong place.
yeah, he did. And it was the picture that went viral. And also, on top of that, the stage pictures, Kuntz's response to it was just wild. He was like, always have your gun safety kit for first aid handy. It's like, sir, you should go to the hospital. You shouldn't be touting this. It should be thoughts and prayers.
Wow.
Hire your campaign manager. This is bad.
Yeah, it's all bad. Sarah Selip, 917strategies.com, and Lily on the Hilly on Instagram. Sarah, it's great to have you on. Appreciate you.
Missed you. Thank you so much, Scott.